All right, good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to late in the day question and answer session. Let's talk about sanding and a very easy finish. It's almost foolproof that you can put on your wood projects that'll make them look really great. Now, the first thing I'll start off with is I had somebody say, hey, I really like the warmth kind of feel on a lot of your turning projects that you do. And here I have an assortment here, and they're in various stages of the finishing, but they're all finished in a very similar way, and I'll explain that to you in a minute. And I told them, well, the difference between a mediocre kind of a finish and an outstanding finish is spending a little bit more time in your preparation, in especially like your sanding and so forth, and getting the wood prepped and ready to apply the finish. I'm going to pan around right now. I have a project on the lathe that I just finished turning, and it has a few little tool marks in there. Now I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to start off with 80 grit sandpaper. Now somebody said, wow, because they started off with 60 grit. It doesn't matter if you start with 60 grit. 60 grit is a tool like anything else, and if you need to use the 60 grit because the project's got that deep of, like, let's say tool marks or whatever in there, then go ahead and use it. On this particular project, I'm going to start off with 80 grit, and then I'm going to go through my grits of sandpaper, and I'm going to show you what I do. And it'll be a little drawn out because I'm going to go slow and I'm going to talk, but the thing is, if you follow this, you're going to find a lot of your projects in terms of the finishing and the way they look, or they're going to turn out much better than they did before. Let's pan over, let's get right after it, and I'll explain it to you from there. I'll see you over at the lathe. This also holds true for flat work too, but mine's on the lathe. So let's go over there, let's take a look, I'll explain it. Now, I put on my dollar store reading glasses right here that I got, and I take a real close look at the wood. Now, this is mesquite. I got quite a bit of mesquite, and it's really nice looking when, I'm done and the finish is on there. But I start off by looking at this, and I thought, okay, I've got tear out all along here. I'll mark it with a pencil. I've got some tear out up in here. I got some tool marks all in through here. Okay, and let's see, I got some more tear out up in here. So this has got quite a bit of tear out, and that's the reason why I picked this, so that I could show you, what I go through. Now, one thing you can do is with real sharp tools, if you get this lightly dampened, you can make really fine light cuts, and it'll get rid of a lot of this. In this case, this is a piece of dried out mesquite, and no matter what I did or how sharp the tools were, I still had some tear out. So now I'm going to revert over to the sandpaper. I'm going to start with 80 grit. So I'll use the 80 grit. I'll show you here real quick. I put the lathe in reverse. And sand by hand. Now, the other thing that you can do is you can power sand. And in the last video, I left you some links below. These are inexpensive. These are padded, right here, these are padded hook and loop discs. You put them on a drill, and I can do this, and with the padding, it actually helps form to the round part of this. In here, I can't get so much. I would have to do by hand. Even out in here, probably by hand would be better. So for right now, I'm going to go ahead, whether it's your choice, whether you want to use these. And like I said, the links are below. They were on sale, and they come 2 in a pack. And you can pop down and take a look at them. They're very handy for wood carvings or any kind of turnings or anything like this. Anyway, 80 grit, I'll be back with you in just a sec. Let me sand it with the 80 grit. Okay, I shut it off. Now, I shut this off a few times, and with my reading store glasses, I looked at this very carefully, and I just turned it by hand, and I went round and round, or if it's flat work, you can look it over. I still got some tear out right in through here, a little bit here, all of it's gone here, got a little bit here. I'm going to work on these two areas. I'm going to turn it back on. I'm running at about 250, 300. I'm going to sand those out, and I'll be right back. Okay, so I stopped it again, and I can now see I've got those marks all out of it, and this is with the 80 grit. So now I'm going to go to 120, and I'm going to do the same thing, and then I'm going to use 150. Now, in between each time I use these grits, I clean this off real well. Now, I use a blowgun. You can wipe it down however you want to do it, but anyway. I use a blowgun. I blow it off and then I go to the next grit. 120, and then I'm going to go to 150, and I'll be back. Now, can you go to 150 from 80? Yes, you can. You might have to spend just a little bit more time, not much, sanding, but you could go to 150. Be back with you in just a sec after I'm done with 150. And I'm looking to make sure I got out the previous grits sanding marks. A little bit up in here still. The rest of it's looking pretty good. So I'm going to sand it right here, and then I'm going to clean it off, and then I'll show you a trick. Okay, now I finished with the 150. It looks real good. I'm going to blow it off. I'm going to clean it real good right now. Now I'm going to take, now that I've cleaned this off, I want to raise the grain. I know a lot of this seems time consuming, but it's really not once you do it. I mean, I just go like this. I just lightly dampen it. You don't have to soak it. You can do this with a rag, however you want. That's it. I leave it alone. It'll dry very quickly, and I'll be right back. Okay, time's gone by. It's now nice and dry again, so therefore I've raised the grain like I said. I'm going to turn it on again. I'm still using the 150, and I'm going to sand it one more time. Now, you'll go through the sandpaper grits fairly fast as you start to come up from 80 grit, especially on these smaller projects. So. Now I'm going to go to 220, and then I'm going to go to 320, and then I'm going to go to 400. When I get this high in the grits, I'll show you another little trick that I do. I'll be back with you after I sand with 220. The sanding's kind of boring to watch, so I'm going to sand it like I did, and then I'll be right back. So now when I get up to about 220, I look and I see the grain pattern, and I just very lightly go around it like this, and I sand with the grain best you can. Okay, and I spend a little bit of time doing that. Then I'm going to switch over and I'm going to go to 320 now, and I'm going to sand it, and then I'll be back with you. I just finished with 320, so now I'm going to blow it off. Like I said, or you can wipe it off. And my last grit's going to be the 400. Now, if you're going to put a film finish on this project or any of these projects, you could probably stop at 150, 220 because it's going to put a film over the surface. A lot of these I use oil finishes and wax, so I'm going to go up higher in the grit. 400 or 500 generally. On this I'll just go to 400. So I got the 400, I'm going to sand it and I'll be back with you. Well, somebody made mention at 400 you're just polishing the wood. Well, watch. If I see sanding dust, and I do, then I'm still sanding. So for this project I'm going to go up to 400. And you'll go through the grits, like I said, a lot faster once you start getting into the higher numbers. So always use the reading store glasses from the dollar store rather. They're cheap. They magnify the heck out of the wood. You can then see imperfections and stuff. You want to make this about as perfect of a surface as you can before we start applying the finish. That's really a key to the whole thing. Then I'll show you kind of a foolproof finish here in a minute. Okay, I'm going to blow it off. I've got a few marks right in here. I can see them with these magnifiers on. So let me get the 400. Let me get them out. I'll be right back. Okay, there we go. I got it out. Okay, now what I'm going to do is I'm going to coat this with boiled linseed oil. I'm going to put it inside real good, and then I'm going to coat this outside. First coat, I'll be right with you. Okay, so the 400 grit's done. Now I have a container of mineral spirits, and I want this clean, so I'm going to spray the heck out of it. I'm going to turn the lathe on. I got a rag here. I'll show you what I mean. This is why I do it. You can see it got off a lot of dust particles and stuff. That wood's pretty darn clean right now. And I'll show you the next thing I do here in just a sec. Let's let that dry. I'll be right back. Okay, so it's dry. So I got this old rag right here, and I'm going to stick it in here, and I'm going to coat the inside of this with linseed oil. Okay. Then on the outside, I'm going to put a coat of linseed oil on it, just like this. My little cup. And I put it on pretty thick. And I'm going to let it just sit there and soak in as much as it wants. Wow. Really makes that grain pop. Makes it look really good. You can see some dry areas. I just like with anything else, I keep it wet. I'm going to give it about 15-20 minutes and I'll be back with you. Okay, it's been 15 minutes. I got some areas that are still wet and a lot of this, it just soaked it right up. So I'm not going to scuff it or anything right now because this is oil, but I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to turn this on. And I'm going to put it on nice and thick again, just like this. You don't want to let it sit too long between coats. It'll get gummy. If it does that, you can use some mineral spirits in a rag and you can loosen it back up, let it dry real well, and then go ahead and put some more linseed oil on there, you know, to keep going with the finish. But we waited the 20 minutes. I put it back on. I'm going to let it sit here now. I'll come back in about another 20-30 minutes. And while we're waiting on that, because now after this, in about 20 minutes, I'm going to rub this down with a dry cloth so it does not gum up on me or get funky looking. I'll show you that in a little bit. But for right now, I'm going to pan over. We'll talk about other projects that are in different phases of the same finish that I'm talking about. Okay, now let me start off by telling you this is not a food safe finish. Boiled linseed oil has got like metallic kind of dryers in it, so don't use it for anything that you plan on eating out of, like salad bowls and things like that. Go get some walnut oil or something that's food safe. Okay, back to what we were talking about. This right here is a turning that I did. I have 2 coats of boiled linseed oil on there. I might put one more on there. It's nice and dry now. I'll put one more coat on this, but this is after 2 coats. Okay, now these over here, I'll show you. Let me zoom in on these. These have 2 coats on them also, and they've been sitting for about 3 days. Now, I will let these sit after the second coat for at least 3 days, maybe 4. It depends on your climate, your humidity, and stuff like that. But they're usually really dry, and I can go on from there with the rest of the finish work. So what do I do from there? Okay, so after I've got my coats of linseed oil on and I feel that they've dried, I use this Zinsser right here, this seal coat, and I put 2 coats on there. Now, I put on the first coat, I let it dry maybe a couple hours or more. It dries quickly. I denib it real lightly with 4/0 steel wool. You can use the gray Scotch-Brite. Gray Scotch-Brite is about 400-600 grit if you want to look at it like sandpaper. Or you can use 400-600 grit sandpaper. I don't use the sandpaper. I usually use a steel wool. Or I use the gray right here. This is the gray Scotch-Brite. And like I said, it's about 400 or 600 grit. And I lightly denib it, and then I put on my second coat of sealer. I let that go ahead and set up probably till the following morning or thereabouts. At that point, you need to make a decision. Does it look warm? Does it look nice? And do you want to keep it like that? Now, if you want to, you leave it alone. You could wait. You could put a coat of wax on it. That's another option. We'll do that in another video. But what I did for this and this video, this demonstration, after I've got my 2 coats on here, I decide if I want a third on. Generally, 2 coats will do it. Let's take a look at this. This right here, that's got 1 coat of poly on there, which is right here. I use the high gloss or the clear gloss in this example. Now, everything I'm showing you, I'll leave in the links below. A lot of this is on sale right now. And when it is on sale, I go ahead and if I'm running low, well, I buy it. Sandpaper too. So this is with 1 coat on there. Now I'll denib this, you know, lightly with that Scotch-Brite, and I'll put maybe another 2, maybe 3 coats on there, and then this will be done. And this right now has got a really nice gloss finish to it. Now, not all of these do I want a gloss finish on. I won't put a gloss finish on this one right here. This one right here is just with the linseed oil, and I'm just waiting for it to finish drying. I can feel it, it's still a little tacky, so I'll leave it alone for another 24 hours. I'll feel it, and when it's nice and dry, then I go ahead, like I said, I denib it, and I'll put a coat of wax on this one, and then I'll make a top for it. Anyway, that's kind of like my process here of what I go through. It seems long and lengthy, it's really not. Once you get in the habit of sanding through your grits correctly, you clean the wood real well, sanding with the grain and so forth, and you clean the wood real well, then you go ahead and you start applying your finish to them. You'll be surprised how much better your finished work comes out than maybe it did in the past. All the links are below. Do me a favor, if you like these kind of videos and demonstrations, I can show you many more ways that I finish these wood projects, including lacquer, polyurethanes, Danish oils, and shellac, and all this stuff. I've experimented around with all of them, and they all have benefits. But if you like this kind of stuff, you know, leave me a comment, let me know, and I'll do more of them. I'm the Home Handyman. I hope you click subscribe and keep following me. I'll see you folks on the next video. Have a great day. Bye-bye.